Back, 8th graders. It's Mrs. Thompson. We're still in section 6.3, but this time we're doing example 3, and our goal is to write polynomials in standard form. Probably didn't even realize that there was such a thing as writing polynomials in standard form. So that's what we're going to do today. So standard form of a polynomial, all that means is you are writing the terms in order from their greatest degree to the least degree. That's all you're doing. A leading coefficient, all that is, it's the number in front of the very first term that's written in standard form. Not necessarily the first coefficient you see, but it's the first coefficient after your polynomial is in standard form. Okay, so that's a very important distinction about leading coefficient. So let's look at example 3. We're going to write polynomials in standard form, and then we're going to give the leading coefficient. You do not start this process by giving me the leading coefficient. You want to rearrange it first, get it in order first in standard form, then tell me the coefficient in front of the first term. Okay? That's going to be our game plan. So let's look at letter A. Here's our polynomial, 20x minus 4x cubed plus 2 minus x squared. Okay? There are 4 terms there. You can see that they are separated by, here's a subtraction sign, and then we have 4x cubed, so that's 2 terms there, plus 2, 2's a term, minus x squared, and x squared is a term. There are 4 terms, and we need to put them in order. So this is what I would do. You can either eyeball it, or I'm going to just kind of write it out so you can kind of see how I'm thinking, and write everything down. And then maybe we can do this without writing so much the next one, okay? Now 20x, let's start here. Remember, the degree of 20x is 1. Now remember, why is that? Well, you focus in on the x. What is the exponent on the x? Yes, an understood 1. That means that is the degree of 20x, whatever the exponent says, okay? Now let's go to the next term, 4x cubed. X has a 3 as an exponent. That means that's the degree of that one. 2, remember constant numbers are always 0, and x squared has a 2 exponent, so that's the degree of that term. We want to rewrite this whole polynomial in order, greatest degree down to the least degree. So our greatest degree is right here. Negative 4x cubed. You always take this sign directly in front of the term. That's the sign of your term. So our sign in front of this term is negative, so that means my first term is negative 4x cubed. Okay? You mark that out, whatever you want to do to kind of show that I've already dealt with that. Okay, so we did that one first. Next will come a degree of 2, so that means I've got to next target this x squared. Well, look at the sign in front of x squared. It too is also negative, so you're going to bring that negative sign with it. Okay? Then we're going to focus here on the 20x because it has a degree of 1, and 20x doesn't have a sign in front of it, so it's understood to be positive, so we're going to write a plus sign. Okay? And then last but not least, that number 2 is a constant number, and that will always be your caboose. If you have a constant number, that will always be the last thing you write in standard form. Okay? So here it is. We've written it in standard form. Negative 4x cubed minus x squared plus 20x plus 2. It is in standard form officially now. Now is the time to identify the leading coefficient. Okay? So the leading coefficient, it sounds like it is. Leading just means it's the first number you see at the beginning, and that is negative 4. And so you'll write the leading coefficient is negative 4. Okay? Let me do another one with you, and then I'll try and take some shortcuts and show you how to do that, okay? Not so much shortcuts as it is less writing, okay? So let's see. We've got 3 terms in our polynomial in letter B. The first term has a degree of 3. Remember why that is. The exponent is 3. That is the degree of that term. The second term has a degree of 5 because the exponent is 5. The last term, 4y, I don't see an exponent, but that doesn't mean there isn't one there. There is. It's an understood 1. Okay? So now what we want to do is we want to put these 3 terms in order from the greatest degree on down to the least degree. And so we're going to start right here with y to the 5th. It's positive, so we're just going to write y to the 5th. Okay? Then we're going to come right next door to the left. We got y cubed. It's also positive. So we're going to write that next. And then last but not least, we got 4y. And that's our last term. So now it's officially in standard form. Y to the 5th plus y to the 3rd plus 4y. It's in standard form. Now, we want to identify our leading coefficient. Okay. It's always the number in front of your first term when it's in standard form. Now, it's in standard form right here. That's standard form. So what's the number in front of y to the 5th? Well, I don't see a number. You're right if you thought it was an understood 1. And so our leading coefficient is 1. You nailed it. You got it. Great job. Okay, now let's look at C. I'm not going to write as much this time. This time, I want you to kind of hyper-focus on those 4 terms. Which of those terms has the biggest exponent? If you said x to the 5th, you are correct. So we're going to write that first. Okay? What's the next biggest? If you're looking at 9x cubed, you are absolutely correct. So what's the next biggest after that? If you're looking at that negative 4x squared, you are on top of it. You are nailing this to the wall. Last but not least, remember what I told you earlier. Your constant numbers are always going to be your caboose. So there you are. It's in standard form from the highest degree on down to the lowest degree. And what's our leading coefficient? Look at the number in front of x to the 5th. It's an understood 1, so your leading coefficient is 1. Okay, so that's a little bit less writing. Just trying to keep you organized, okay? If you're wondering why do I keep marking stuff out, I'm just trying to keep you visually organized so you don't miss these problems and make a silly mistake. All right, let's look at letter D. Last but not least, here are our 3 terms. Which one of those terms has the biggest exponent? You are correct if you said the negative 3y to the 8th. What comes next? Yep, 18y to the 5th. And that means 14y must be last. So we just wrote that in standard form. It's in descending order, greatest degree on down to the least degree. Great job. What's your leading coefficient? Look at the number in front of your very first term. That's your leading coefficient, which is negative 3. Great job, guys. I hope that made sense. That's why we learned about degrees. We needed to know what a degree was so we knew how to put these things in order. Degrees focus on the exponent on your variable, and that's how we put them in order. Okay? Bring your questions to class. If you have any, you might not have any, so hope you have a great night.